All right. Welcome to another lively edition to the Home Savvy Home Seller live stream. Got a good episode cooked up for you today. Florida home sellers panicking. There's some serious split personality going on down in the Florida state, the sunny state of Florida. We're going to dig into that today. We're going to talk about what's going on. I've got a special guest rolling in here. He's coming along in a few minutes in the green room. We'll let him in when he gets here. We'll have a discussion. And then, of course, we will dig into your questions and your concerns. No complaints, please. Save those for the comments on the YouTube videos. Of course, I will dig into commission questions with, of course, the commission, the state of affairs. The big rollout happens across the country by August 17th. Some states are rolling it out sooner, but there's a lot of confusion, a lot of questions, and we're gonna dig into it. So I'm gonna kick off until my guest gets here. I'm gonna kick off with the state of Florida. I wanted to dig in. I know a lot of you guys have reached out to me looking for referrals to agents down in the state of Florida, looking to sell. Some have had some challenges in selling your property. So you're looking for another referral for an agent, a referral to an agent to try to get the job done. And it is a serious tale of two markets down there. Of course, it's been all in the news for everything that's negative that's happening. But what you don't hear about are the flip side of things, away from that negativity. So wanted to dig into that. Hello, as always, Ironwood Workman. Hey, great to see you. You're, welcome a regular. I love to see you here in the chat. So I'm glad to have you in the conversation. So I'm going to dig right in until my guest gets here into this article I pulled up off of realtor.com. And, it caught my eye. I've seen a lot about Florida. Of course, Florida has been in the news a lot with the HOA issues and the insurance issues and all the stuff that kind of surrounds, all the different challenges that they've seen over the last year, 2 years. But this article popped up. Florida's real estate market has a split personality. What to know if you're buying or selling in the Sunshine State. So it goes on to say that Florida's housing market is a tale of two states. On the coast, condo prices are falling, with residents being driven out by high insurance costs and assessment fees, while inland, the cost of single-family homes is holding steady. That is what you're not hearing about. You're not hearing about the single-family homes inland at all. No one's talking about that. Everyone's talking about how everything's tanking in Florida. Local experts say this divergence is driven by soaring insurance premiums and rising assessment fees. I am actually going to make this a little bigger for you guys. There we go. I am feeling a major slowdown in the market, says Realtor.com senior economist Joel Berner. I feel like it's a buyer's market right now, unless the house is perfect and perfectly priced. And of course, they're referring to condo owners. And we're going to dig into what specifically is happening with those challenges with the condos in a bit, after my guest gets here. It goes on to say that after years of demand and robust equity gains, Florida's housing market is changing, but it might not be on a downturn. Realtor.com has analyzed the data to provide insights into the current state of Florida's housing market. This, for all my home sellers out there that are looking to, unload their property in Florida, this is not bad news. Brian Jackson, 31. Welcome. Winter Park area versus the Bithro area. I know you guys, I apologize. My pronunciations are not great. I know you guys like to remind me of that. Bithro, is that how you say it? Hopefully. Leah, that's so good to see you. Leah, good to see you. There you go. And Dwayne says, hello from West Warwick, Rhode Island. Hey now, my neighbor to the south. Up here in the New England area. We're finally getting some decent weather up here, Dwayne. Finally, that hot, humid weather moved out. It's been really nice the last couple of days. Iron Woodworkman said, I know nothing about the market in Florida. People are talking about insurance a lot. Yes, and we're going to get into that. we're absolutely going to get into that because there's some big doings. I mean, what's happening in Florida with insurance is not necessarily unique to Florida, but they do have some significant things that have impacted. Primarily, it has to do with, it stems from, Hurricane Ian. When Hurricane Ian rolled through and made a mess of the state, it was an insurance nightmare. That kickstarted the insurance policy increases that went skyrocket. And unfortunately, the way the insurance market works, everybody shares the load. Everybody shares the load. So you have people that are high risk, you have people that are low risk, and that risk is spread across every policyholder. So that's why a lot of people will, even if you're inland, your policies have gone up because of the fact that you're sharing some of that load from the coastal properties. I know here in Plymouth is a coastal area, and I'm not on the water. Even though we have a coastline, we have waterfront properties that are high risk in flood zones. I'm not. I'm about 15 minutes, 10 minutes away from the water. If my house floods, well, there's bigger issues. There's much bigger issues. But my insurance went up. My insurance went up last year along with everyone else's, because all insurance companies they spread that risk across the board. So it's kind of stinks, but they're feeling it also from a different perspective as well, because of it just so happened that the cost of rebuilding after Hurricane Ian coincided with the rise in construction costs. It was really a perfect storm in the most negative type of way. To rebuild those areas that were affected was incredibly expensive. And the more expensive it is to rebuild, the higher the insurance risk, the higher the insurance cost, it goes up. So the replacement cost. The article goes on to say, after years of demand and robust equity, Florida's housing market is changing, but it might not be on the downturn. I think I already read this. I apologize. This was interesting. It says, why the fuss over Florida? I mean, we all know it's HOA and insurance, but why are we talking about Florida? It says Florida is the biggest housing market in the country with the most homes for sale. Despite California having almost twice as many residents, Florida has nearly double the number of home listings in any given year, not just now, accounting for about 1 out of 8 listings in the U.S. That is, and they're talking about not just now with the inventory. Texas, the inventory, Florida has come up to pre-pandemic levels. It's up to 2019 levels. They're talking about in a typical market across the board. There's more residents. It says Florida remains a bellwether state. Jenny Lentz, the managing director of Dolly Lentz Real Estate in Naples, Florida, consistently attracting people from around the globe due to its significant tax advantages, perfect weather, and booming economy. So, I mean, it's especially if you live up in the Northeast where we're at, we have a lot of snowbirds, and the snowbirds are, here for 6 months out of the year, and then they head down the coast to Florida, the Carolinas, for the other 6 months of the year. So it's a common destination point for that area, and typically in the past, it's been affordable over the years, but not so much lately. This map actually kind of shows. I'm just going to check my messages here, make sure my guest is not lost. Here we go. Nope. Okay, Florida leads. Says Florida leads inventory pile up. So this was just interesting in terms of. It says in June the number of homes for sale was up 23% compared to a year earlier. In Florida, inventory is up more than 50%. So you can see where the most number of listings. Very interesting. That you've got a couple pockets that are still seriously lacking. My geography is not great. I'm pretty sure this is Utah. Isn't that terrible? They need like the little, there we go. Nevada. I needed to click on it. Nevada, 15% still down versus Florida, 54.9%. You've got South Dakota. That's interesting. South Dakota, Utah, and then we've got Illinois Chicago, I did a video on this not too long ago, about a month and a half ago or so, and interesting that Illinois, there are pockets, there are towns in Illinois that are booming, absolutely booming, and that's evident from the lack of inventory. Massachusetts, right up here in Massachusetts, it's slowly creeping up, and then we got Rhode Island here, 4.1% there for Dwayne. So, very interesting across the country and how different it is. And I mean, it's no secret that obviously real estate is local. The media, we all know what the media does, and they like to generalize. Everything's down, everything's up, everything's catastrophic, everything's booming. Nope, not the case. Housing, as it goes on to say, housing market has been. Oh, I'm going to hit pause for a second. I'm going to actually do a little introduction here for my guest, because it looks like he has made it to the green room, which I'm super excited about. So I'm going to do a little intro music, because it's pretty dramatic to have this gentleman on my live stream, hailing from the south coast of Florida, Palm Beaches, sunny sky, and everything that is happy about the great state of Florida. I give you Mr. Paul Likens.
Hey, wow, what an introduction, Jen.
I worked at that.
Music and all.
Hey,
nice.
Hello, my friend. You made it.
I like to thank the Academy.
No words here, sir. I'm doing great. I'm glad that you could join us, because I'm just digging in to this article about the state of affairs in Florida, talking about really the tale of two markets down there, and I kind of went into. I'm just going to bring the article up so we can jump back into the state of affairs here.
Yeah, I didn't get.
This is the article that.
Read it, but I did see that come across my desk the other day.
Yeah. So, they talk about the fact that there's a split, right? There's the coastal areas, where the coastal areas are obviously feeling insurance assessments, condo fee issues, which are driving away demand, driving up inventory. But you have, in the central part of Florida, where it's not, you're not seeing it as much. And
right.
We were looking at we're just checking out the state of the country in terms of where it kind of stacks up to other parts of the country. Yeah.
Florida's almost purple. What does that mean?
So that means it's 54.9% inventory increase year over year. So leading the country. Condos. Yeah, 100%. 100%. What's also interesting, though, I didn't pick this up. Vermont. I wonder what's going on in Vermont. Right? Vermont, 41% increase over last year. Are people leaving Vermont? I wonder if I have to look into that.
Maybe they're tired of cold, and I don't know. Aren't they known for maple trees?
Yeah, maple syrup. Lots of land.
I mean, I love maple syrup, so I mean,
and flannel.
Yeah,
I think lots of flannel for sure in Vermont. But New Hampshire, right next door, 11.4%, which is very interesting. Yeah, you don't know what the reason, but what's interesting is that the areas that have the least amount of inventory increase: Nevada, South Dakota, Illinois, which is some hot pockets. Got a couple comments here. So Wangster, is it a bad time to sell right now in Florida, even if I price it right? Well, you know what, my before we get into specific markets and things of that nature, my generalized answer on something like that is always going to be, my response rather is always going to be, is it the right time for you to sell? It's the right time for you to sell. I don't think that you ever time. I mean, that's not the answer I know you're looking for, but you don't time to the market. You time to your own personal need. If it's the right time for your own household economy and your personal situation, then you don't work around what the market's doing. Would you concur, Paul,
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that?
because there's always somebody, and I get this all the time. People, they talk about Florida, but there's always someone who has to buy a house right now. There just
Always.
is. People get job transfers, whatever. Family members get sick. There's always a reason that somebody has to move, and it might not be the perfect time, but it's their time. So that's
Right.
the time they have to buy, and they have to deal with the circumstances that come with that. So I mean, you're not going to turn a job down that's a great job just because maybe you would. I mean, I don't know, but if it's if the job is there and it's like, well, this is the job I want, and it's putting me in Florida, then you just
I
have
would
to
agree.
deal with it.
Yep, I would totally agree. I think that if the answer to the question, why do you want to move and is it a good time to move? If the answer is, well, I don't really need to move, then you don't.
Right.
Because it does, the answer doesn't matter. The market doesn't matter. I would say, regardless, the one thing that I would tell all home sellers is that regardless of how good the market is doing, you have to have strong motivations because the process of selling your home, I'm not talking investment property, I'm talking your home, even if everything is silky smooth, you get the price you want, the buyers are fantastic, you get them, everything's lined up, there's no hiccups whatsoever. It's still super stressful because you're moving your life.
Yeah.
You're moving your life. And so you have to have a strong reason to do that. You have to have a goal. You'd be like, I am moving because I want to be near my kids. I'm moving because I have a job opportunity. I'm moving because I want to get away from the high assessments. Those are all reasons to be like, okay, I'm going to push through the stress of, oh my God, I didn't realize how much crap I have in my kitchen cabinets. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
It's true.
I think that is 100%. You got a little fan here, must know you. Our Ironwood Workman says, "Welcome, Paul. Welcome, Paul." I
Hey,
don't know if he
thank
knows
you.
you or not, but Ironwood Workman's a regular on the channel.
Nice.
Brian Jackson, 31. I think it's a good time to learn real estate. Yeah, that's what I am. As you guys know, I'm here to educate so you guys can advocate for yourself. And whether you learn real estate because maybe you have it in your mind, you're going to get your license or you're going to try to do FSBO or whatever. I think that there's always benefit to knowing more about the process yourself. You're working with a real listing agent, it just makes you better prepared to ask better questions.
It
And
does.
then also help you sort yourself out from the 75% of the agents that are not worth 2 cents, never mind 2-3%, right? This is what yeah.
I know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
deal with it all.
Well, the nature is it's not a matter of hiring a real estate agent. And I talked to a friend of mine about this, ad nauseum this afternoon. It's not about hiring a real estate agent. It's about hiring the right agent that is going to not wait for you to ask for the questions, but provide the information before you ask it. But in the meantime, learn, 100%. There we go. It's always a good time. I'm just now learning what the viewpoint is like from the broker and agent side of the deals. There you go. Absolutely. And I'm going to share as much as I can on that. Still learning contracts. Very good. Very good.
Yeah. Learn your
very good
contracts. It's
points.
very important.
You got it. 100%.
Read everything.
Yep. Don't rely on okay. So if I can just tell you something real quick, the one thing that I have learned and the one thing I've seen and witnessed throughout the years, I understand, when I'm sitting down with a home seller or sitting down with a home buyer and you go through, I mean, I'm in Massachusetts. The number of pages on purchase agreements is ridiculous. It's ridiculous everywhere, but I feel like it's worse here. I don't know. It just the number. It's like it's a constitution for crying out loud, and just to buy a house. And I don't know how many times the I've seen where the buyer or the seller says, you know what, I trust you, Jen. Where do I sign? Or I trust the attorneys. Where do I sign? Please, please, please don't do that. no, you're not going to understand every word of the contract. They're written by attorneys.
Right. And we're not attorneys.
And we're not attorneys. But advocate for yourself. You should have a general understanding. And then if you don't, you're not necessarily asking the attorney to explain all the legalese in the document, but Mr. Attorney, give me a summary of what that paragraph says. Tell me so I can understand what I'm signing. Super, super important. That's my little PSA. I need a sound effect for what's that sound from the 80s? Din, din, din. The more you know. The more you know. I need to add
a little shooting star.
Yeah, I need to add that to my repertoire. K. Michael Shepard, good to see you, my friend. I need to email you, by the way. I haven't forgotten about you. You're on my list. He says there are too many people without integrity who consumers cannot trust. For that reason, I will eventually loom at becoming a realtor or encouraging my spouse to look into it. My first priority, though, is securing a GC or similar credentials. Yeah, you know what? I think you're hit the nail on the head. There's no question. There's absolutely no question. That I had Paul, I had a long conversation with a friend of mine today, and we were talking about the lawsuit. And I know we're getting totally off topic. We're going to get back to it, guys. Bear with me for 2 seconds. But just in terms of the lawsuit and how I feel the consumers lost out, really, really, they lost. The lawsuit is going to be successful in confusing everyone. Nobody won.
Right.
The sellers did not win. It may feel like it because of what the media is touting. The sellers did not win. The buyers did not win. The attorneys won. Yeah. The attorneys won 30% of $418 million. What they didn't do is address the big problem. They didn't address the real problem. You know what I'm saying? It's like going to the dentist and getting a filling, but not cleaning out the cavity before you put the filling in. That's what happened with this settlement. The real issue with this settlement is addressing the fact that any of you all who want to be a real estate agent can go online. You can take a test this week. You can make an appointment to get your license. And I can guarantee you within a week, week and a half, you'll be a licensed real estate agent. That's it. And that's wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. There should be mandatory classes, mentoring, apprenticeships. They shouldn't be, new agents shouldn't be allowed to sell houses for a given amount of time until they actually know how to represent buyers and sellers. Do you follow me?
When the broker I work for, when I went to her and I looked and interviewed all these places, she would sit with me at 6 p.m. after work and we'd go over the contract. And she would hand me a listing agreement. She'd hand me the as-is contract. She would hand me stuff. She made me read them line for line and then come back the next day or evening and explain to her what the contract meant. Now, keep in mind, those contracts are written by lawyers. So I know enough of that contract, but I never act like I'm a lawyer. And I always tell someone, look, these are written by lawyers. If there's something in here that you have a question about, either I'll ask my broker or you can ask a lawyer. But most people look at it and get an understanding and go, thank you, Paul, for explaining it and stuff. But she made me go through that contract before she would ever let me go out and even talk to a customer. And she was like, make sure you know this because you're not going to go out. And for the first couple things, they would look them over before I sent it to be signed because her neck's on the line, right? She's the broker.
Yep.
And she would make sure that everything was done right. And if I made a mistake, she would correct it, but then she'd go, what did you do wrong? So I understood what the mistake was. And even to this day, and I've been doing this almost 13 years, even to this day, when I look at a contract before I send it to be signed, I probably read it four times to make sure every box is checked correctly. Did I miss anything? Sometimes we get busy. Sometimes I'm doing 3 contracts for 3 different people in a day. I look it over, make sure everything is right there, and then go, hey, you guys agree with everything? You understand it? Before you send it off, because once you send it, it's done, right? Especially if it's executed and stuff. So she made
if only that were the If only that were the industry standard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If only that were the industry standard. But I digress. We'll get back on topic.
Oh, I love your screen in the background, making me feel right at home.
I did that for you. Hey, I
Thank
did that
you.
for you, my friend.
It's
I
awesome.
got you. I got you. This article goes on to say that housing stock has been on a tear in Florida since early 2022, especially over the past year. In recent months, number of homes for sale is up 50% compared to the same time in 2023. We just saw that. And that's after inventory rose by around 30% the year before. Instead of a winter dip in homes hitting the market this past year, they kept piling up. This means in 2024, Florida listings made up about 1 of every 5 in the US. That surge in listings has led to falling home prices, especially in some southern Florida markets. But, and here's where the tale of split personalities come in. It says there's more than one market. Florida is a large and diverse state. That's certainly reflected in its various housing markets. The main distinction: single-family homes, which are most found inland, are experiencing stable market conditions. I had this situation where I have a client that is moving up here from Florida. They put their house on the market. It was on the market for, I think they said about 5-6 days, and then boom, gone. Sold. Not what you would hear about in the rest of the Florida market, but she is in an inland area. Mm-hmm. She's not on the coast. So it's proof positive that this isn't blowing smoke. This is the real deal. It says, in contrast, there's a turbulence in the state's vast condominium market with inventory surges and a concentration of price reductions. The reasons for the divergence, and I want to get into this with you, Paul, is according to the local experts, is twofold. First, the rising insurance premiums in Florida, which I talked about a little bit earlier, squeezing the condo segment. And then the insurance, it says insurance, massive factor right now in the state of Florida, especially with some of those southern coastal states. Insurance rates are going up a lot. I would add on to that and say that, and this is where I really wanted to get your 2 cents on, is the fact that it's not just insurance, right? It is the assessments. It's the new laws since the Miami collapse, right? Mm-hmm. And how that affects, and the rise in HOAs, the rise in HOA fees because of all of this.
Exactly. So they're all tied together.
So what do you? I mean, so are you seeing what this article is? Tell me your boots on the ground down there.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Your boots on the ground. You're seeing it firsthand. So are you seeing all of these things equally? Like, is it a combination of these things, plus this, or what are you seeing with what's happening down there?
First, it was the insurance started to get, they would get their quotes and they would come back, and a lot of that again ties into sort of going back to the collapse and insurance companies looking at buildings and is your building good? But first, the insurance started to go up, right, because of the hurricanes. They started the master policies for these condo buildings were getting these insurance quotes that were, 300% higher than what it was a year before. So people's monthly HOA is in a condo. You really only have to have an HO6, an internal insurance policy, like a renter's policy. It just covers the inside because the master policy covers the main building on the outside. And the HOA has that, and it's usually built into your monthly HOA fee. So, you had these HOAs where people moved into them. Their monthly HOA was $300, $400, $500 a month. They were okay with that. And then they go out and get a new quote. And all of a sudden the insurance goes up so much that the HOA has to increase their COA. And there is a separate HOA is a homeowners association. That's for single family homes, townhomes, villas. A COA is a condo owners association, and it's governed by a condo association. So there's some difference there, but their fees went up from that $500 to $700, $800, $900, $1,000 a month.
Whoa.
People were just freaking out because they weren't ready for that. There's a huge population of people that live in these condos that are retired individuals on a fixed income. They don't have that extra $500 a month to pay for. So that was part of the problem. Then the law came out saying that by the end of, they came out saying, hey, everyone has to start doing these milestone inspections. You have to, if your building's 3 stories or taller, of a certain age, 30 years, whatever it is, if it's within so many miles of the ocean, it's every, I think, 25 years old. And if they're like 30 years and older, they have to have this milestone inspection done by December 31st of this year. And I guess if they're not quite 30 years old, they have till December 31st, 2025. But all these buildings were forced to now get these inspections done. So they're
Are those inspections for that foundation, the foundationing
structural
inspection?
milestones. You had milestones for like structural and safety. So
Yeah.
they had.
Are they expensive?
They are expensive, and they have to get engineers, and there's only so many engineers and architects.
Oh, right.
So
right.
throughout the whole state of Florida. So now you have all these
Yikes.
people getting these inspections done, and then they're finding issues because some of these buildings didn't do the maintenance they should have done. Maybe they didn't know about it. Some of them didn't do it for years prior. And so now they're all of a sudden getting these huge assessments. So you add that they already got hit with a high HOA fee, and now they get told that they have a $30 million assessment. And some of these people, for some of the buildings, some of the high ones, were getting assessments as high as $175,000 to $224,000 for each individual.
You did some videos on this stuff.
I did.
And
Yes.
you had some pretty horrific stories, because I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. I mentioned earlier that, the Sunshine State is for us in the Northeast is often a snowbird destination, right?
Right.
These are retirees that are living 6 months up here, 6 months down there. Retirees, fixed income.
A lot of them.
Fixed income, right? A lot of them, not all, obviously not all of them, right? But still. And now you're talking, okay, they're moving down there. They find a place that it's affordable. It's within their price range. It's within their budget. But now you're going from like double, triple cost to live there. And so what happens if, I mean, well, I do know what happens if you need these things, you have the special assessment, you sell the property. Now you have to sell the property assessments. Well, let me ask you, in Florida, do the special assessments need to be paid in full?
Depends
when the property transfers.
It depends on what's in their documents, but I think they call it a due on sale clause. And so and I believe if it does, then they do have to pay it when they sell the property. It has to be paid in full before they can. So most of the time they'll order what's called an estoppel letter. The estoppel letter will show any violations, any fees, and then if there is the assessment on there, and that assessment has to be paid in full before they can transfer ownership. So they won't give them approval to close.
So you have these condos, and we're not talking like $500 million condos.
No.
On all of these. We're talking a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you start saying, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Retiree, you're selling your condo. And yes, I know you pay it. Maybe you owe it outright. You don't have a mortgage on it, but oh wait, you're not getting all your equity because now you have to pay your special assessment of $50,000 or whatnot. Correct?
I just helped someone buy one that was only it was $229,000, and it was a $38,000 assessment.
Good Lord!
So they had to.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, this sounds like it's a prime. Patty says it sounds worse than Jersey. Jersey gets a lot of flack. I will say that Jersey gets a lot of flack. Poor Jackie, when she comes on this live stream, she knows. But you would think that, okay, so you have rent control in a lot of areas. The purpose of rent control is to create a ceiling on how much a landlord can increase the rent to protect that class, to protect the affordable class, the affordability rate of apartments, right? So you can't, if it's under rent control, you can't increase above a certain percentage, right? And it helps the residents have a sense of security that they're not going to have, and we actually have that on a 55 plus modular home community here, where the monthly rental on the lot rental is under rent control. So it's not just rentals in particular; it's any type of monthly fee, that you're paying. And the owner of that property cannot increase it. And so when they buy into it, they're like, okay, so I know that yes, this could go up, but there's, it can only go up by 2% or 3%. So at least it creates a ceiling, right?
Mm-hmm.
this needs to have a ceiling. These special assessments need to, it seems like that's what the state needs to work on to help protect these people is some sort of, I mean, have you heard of anything like that
Not
being,
not yet.
work,
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't researched it. I haven't seen anything like that. And it is the assessments are all over the place between what people are paying. And something that's been brought up a lot that people have made comments about was that no engineer is going to go out and sugarcoat what they find, right? Because they're fear of being sued for litigation if they
100%.
don't. So they're going to give the worst case scenario. They're going to say,
Right.
hey, this, and this. And I'm not saying that they're going to fabricate anything, but they're certainly not going to be, oh, that doesn't look that bad. Well, that could come back and really, I mean, that's what people are saying. Again, I'm not an engineer. I don't know an engineer, how they do their work. I have no knowledge of that. And any engineers out there, if I'm wrong, please tell me so. But this is just what people are saying to me. And so they're worried about that because then they're just going to say, okay, well, here's it is. And they present that to the board. And now the board says, hey, we have to fix all this. And then they now tell all the homeowners, hey, this is going to cost this much. We got quotes from various companies. And then in that line, there was a story about that where one management company said that all the assessments on the building were about $50 million. And yet the valuation on the building was only 49 million or something like that. So they're like, how is that right? So they ended up getting a second quote. And it was like,
that sounds like sketchy
million.
Math to me.
Well,
that's a sketchy math situation.
So some of that's on the news thing. That was down in Miami.
You know what they call that? You know what they call that? And I can say this because I'm Polish. That's Polish math right there. That's Polish math. That's have you heard about Polish math?
No.
You can buy something for $1, or you can buy 12 for $13.
Nice.
So there you go.
But going back to original question, the question about it was it's definitely affecting the real estate market here because the inventory now is at, last I checked, and I haven't checked in a week or so, but I think the last I checked was 7.7 months in the condo inventory. 7.7 months of inventory. But a year ago, it was 3.2. So.
Yeah. And you know what? This article actually did, so here you go. This actually illustrates this, right? So the housing stock over the course of 2019 to roughly now, well, June 1st, thereabouts. And you can kind of see with the condo market, being where it is, 58,000, in change. Single family home market still leading, but still, I mean, that's a sizable jump. Yeah. That is a sizable jump. I thought this graph was great because, I mean, you're down, let's see, you're like in this area, correct?
A little lower, right?
Like right here?
Yeah, right now. Yeah. If you go up
north of Miami.
North of Miami, yeah. And that's
so yeah. And I know you do a lot of condo content about that. You're very well versed in, the condo market down there because, I mean, look at the concentration.
Yeah.
In terms of, the condo listing proportion. So very, very interesting. This article goes, go ahead.
You talked about, inland, and if you go to the West Coast, which I don't do, but the West Coast is getting hammered with inventory and property sitting on the market. And I've been hearing stories about that.
You're talking about, so I wonder if that has anything to do.
Down below, a little lower, like down in the Sarasota and stuff like that. They've said that places, some of the homes that are over there, just have so much inventory going on right now. It's crazy.
Well, I would chalk that up to climate. I mean, you had Debbie, Hurricane Debbie just rolled through Tampa, right? And so, I mean, but isn't that, in terms of coastal communities being hit by storms?
Yeah.
That's which means the insurance rates are going to be much higher, right? Yeah. There, along with property repairs and property damage. Yeah. I mean, I saw the pictures of the flooding from Debbie. Was that a week ago?
Mm-hmm.
In the Sarasota area. So, yeah. So this area, this side, you're seeing more like, and that would make sense. 33,000 and change. That was a little bit, 33,000. little bit less, 34,000, 33,000. So very interesting. Very,
Yeah.
very, very interesting. Patty asks, will folks be moving out of Florida? It's interesting because I have received quite a few home sellers. Quite a few of you guys have reached out looking for agent referrals to sell, and not everybody's moving out of Florida. A lot of people are, because they just can't. They just don't want to deal with the costs. They don't want to deal with the rising insurance costs, the rising, HOA fees. So they're moving not too far, but I talked to someone the other day that's moving, from one area to, just up to Jacksonville area. So they're still staying in Florida. I don't think people will be fleeing because of it. I think that I think some will. But what is your expectation,
Well,
your experience been
it,
so far
it,
with people leaving?
yeah, it's funny that Patty brought that up question. And yes, some of the people that are retirees and some of the people, the Floridians that grew up down here are moving to places a little bit north, or they're moving to places like North Carolina and Tennessee. There is a good handful of people moving out, but here's the interesting thing. An article just came out the other day that Florida just now passed 26 million, I believe, 26 million residents, something like that. I forgot the number of people, and they said that by, I forgot what the number was, but by 2027, it's expected to even grow even more. The number of people that are still moving to Florida is just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable, the number of people moving here, and in which has a lot of locals kind of like, where are they going to put them all? But they're still moving. Even with all the bad news, with all the everything, people still want to move to Florida.
So this answers the question. This is totally tied into the very first question that was asked, right? Is in this, it beautifully, actually. So I can find it here.
Get that article for you
right here. Is it a bad time to sell right now in Florida, even if I price it right? So the fact that people are moving in illustrates exactly what we were talking about, that people will move based on their own personal situations and not because of what is happening not strictly because of what's happening in the market. Yes, the market will impact their finances, but the finances are the reason why they may or may not move, not because the market. So the market could be screaming, it's unaffordable and prices are rising and fees and rates and assessments and blah, 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 blah. But if the finances are in order, they can afford it, they have a reason, maybe they're moving closer to family, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense in their personal life, they're going to do it regardless. And what you just said illustrates that. Yeah, right? So no one's fleeing Florida. No one's fleeing Florida.
It's like for every one that moves out, 4 move in. It's just, I mean, it's kind of, you can see, it's kind of has me dumbfounded. But I mean, look, I love it living here. I've been here over 30 years, and not perfect, but I love it. And I think a lot of those people are looking at the things that I love about it. And yes, it's not this, but hey, look, people still move to New York City, right? The Big Apple. I'm like, how could you live in there? Why would you ever move to that city with the traffic and everything that's going on? Yet it's one of the most greatest cities, I mean, whatever you look at it, in the world, and people still move there. So,
well, you say the same thing about California with their median home prices in many of the major cities, San Francisco and so forth, being $1 million for just a start, for a median home price, starter home, $1 million.
Moving there.
Yeah.
I mean, they did leave for a while. They left for a while, but then they went right back, and their numbers are right back up again. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's.
I see that in Massachusetts. People get sick of this. They get sick of the snow, and they're like, "I'm out of here. I'm done with the snow." And then a couple of years later, they're like, "I miss the seasons."
Yeah,
I miss the seasons.
One of those people, even though I grew up in Texas and didn't really have seasons, but at least it got a little cold, like winter and in November and October, and we had a little bit of a winter. Now it's just like summer and spring in Florida. That's it.
Yeah, I will tell you, it was hot last week here, muggy, 90, high humidity, gross. Felt like Florida. and the not so desirable part of Florida, hot and humid, you know. But then Debbie rolled through, the remains of Debbie, whatever, you know, the rest, you know, the storms and stuff. Sunday was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Golfed on Sunday and it was low humidity. And it was the high was 80. Monday was like high of 75, 77, low humidity. I'm like,
stop rubbing it in.
I love living. Love living here. Maddie says, "Wow, this is what happened to apartments. This is what happened to apartments converted to condos that were damaged in the 1994 Northridge, California earthquake. People walked away because cost to repair exceeded equity."
Wow. I remember that earthquake.
You know what?
They just got rocked again.
I feel like I'd forgotten about that because that was right before I got into the real estate. Was right in that era. So, what gets Ironwood asked what gets damaged on condos the most?
If it's Ironwood, if it's near the ocean, the salt air is, if you talk to anyone that's ever left anything they've ever owned on a patio or near the salt air, ask them what happens to it. Well, imagine that every day, storms, windstorms, hurricanes, year after year. It's a lot of it. What I've seen is it's the, I forgot the term they called it, but it's the rebar that's built inside of these buildings, right? The concrete and poured over the rebar, and the concrete starts to, the water gets into it. And when the rebar and the concrete get wet and it heats, right, gets there and expands, it starts to deteriorate the concrete and the rebar itself. So the structure, and then also the support beams on a lot of these. And remember, not everything's on the ocean, but still,
right.
Just, you know, even where we live out west, you know, we're pretty far away. But I mean, if you live in certain areas within a few miles, anything you leave outside, bike chains, anything like that, you know, they get rusted pretty quick. So the salt air is bad here.
It travels, right? You feel
yeah.
like it's not just about the spray of the ocean. It's you have a high wind,
right?
And that stuff it absolutely travels.
Yeah,
it absolutely travels.
A lot of it's the foundation, which are concrete pillars, right? That's what we're seeing. And then the building itself, you'll see a lot of construction going on. I saw it in one of this other day. I was north of my area, and the guys had the jackhammers out, and they were working on the patios. So, and they're probably redoing the patios.
So I have a curiosity question, and I don't know if anybody else is interested in this answer, but the DIY or how does this work brain is going. So how you have a condo building that doesn't pass inspection. The structural engineers say, this is the concrete that is not allowed. This thing needs to be brought up to code. It's a 3-4 story condo building. Are they literally raising the building on pylons and digging out the foundation and laying new foundation and bringing, I mean, like what happens that, I mean,
good question.
You know, how
I just did a video Sunday about this because one of the condo buildings just last Thursday here, they were 3 of the buildings with, I guess, 36 units. There was about 11 people there. They made them evacuate. They were already doing some work. They were already doing repair work for the past 10 months. And when they got down and were looking, all in front of each one of the condos, the earth was dug up. So they were going underneath. And this condo building is literally right on, like, near the beach up north. It's north of Palm Beach County. They went underneath and they're looking at the foundation. And the news came out the other day after they did a little more investigating, and you could see the concrete and the rebar, and the concrete was falling off and the rebar was showing, and there's a huge crack going across it. So so that has to be fixed. Now the question, and this is the one I don't know, and a lot of people have asked me, when do these people get to go back in their place? Because one of the guys that was interviewed said, hey, I'm still making mortgage payments. What do I do here? And that's
right.
Yeah. Which leads, this goes full circle back to the whole issue of insurance being so expensive. The insurance companies will make sure that these buildings they want to know their reports that they are in good shape, because then they're like, well, you know, we don't want to, that's why it's hard to get insurance on some of these buildings. Some of them are blacklisted because they're not up to code or up to par.
Yep.
And then you can't get insurance on it, and then you can't finance
it.
So it's all one big it's all one big mess.
It kind of is. I mean, you figure like, okay, they have insurance. I would assume that their insurance policies will cover, replacement housing, temporary housing while they're there. But the reality of it is that temporary housing isn't going to be, it's not home.
Right.
It's not, you don't have all your stuff. It's not comfortable. It's not all the things. And I mean, something like that, I would imagine you're talking months and
Yeah,
months.
it's not an easy fix.
That's not something that happens overnight because
Absolutely not.
it's not a weekend job. It's not a week job.
Yeah.
It could, I would imagine, because I would, you're going through a process like building a house.
Right.
You got to, you have to deconstruct it first, right? Then you have to have probably inspectors, get the plans approved for what exactly they're going to replace it with. Okay, fine. Pour it in, have another inspector come in. Okay, let it cure, have another inspector come in. I mean, it's probably 3 months or longer, I would
Jen,
think.
what's crazy about it was from the report that, so they were doing the work, they knew about the work, they've been working on it for about 10 months. And then they went and they were doing this part of the work. I don't know the full story. I just, some of the pieces I heard on the news. And when they got to that, it was such an issue for the engineer that he immediately called the city, immediately called all the officials and said,
wow,
we've got a red flag here. This is like, code
Miami,
red, whatever. They immediately got in touch with the property managers supposedly and made those people leave. Like, look, get out. You got to get out. It's not safe.
they didn't want to. Yeah, they didn't want another Miami.
And that's crazy because, like, I mean, you're at work and all of a sudden it's like, well, what? I got to get out of my what? So imagine for those 11 people, they all found a place to stay, and thank goodness it's not what happened at Surfside, right? So, but that's where all this is. But I can't imagine being like, I mean, we have dogs, right? And imagine like, hey, you got to get up and go. It's like, wait a minute, I got dogs. Where am I going to take my dogs and my kid? And yeah,
that's bonkers.
I really feel for the people.
Your home advocate, welcome. Good to see you. You're regular here. Florida realtor here. Crazy here for sure. Smart realtors are pricing accordingly. Absolutely. My strategy is to go slightly below market and get a couple offers. And then she says, fellow realtors getting 40, 50, 60,000 below asking offers. Wow. Well, I mean, you have the scariness. You have somebody that wants to buy a condo, right? And they want to, all the boxes are checked and they're like, this is what they want to do. They don't want to be in a single family because they're snowbirds. They don't want to have to worry about, managing a single family home, right? And maybe they want the pool, but not manage the pool, which is one of the amenities that you can getting into a condo, HOA and whatnot. But that's gotta be scary and probably a lot of pushback with, hopefully a good, the agent is advocating. And I guess that's the thing. The buyers have to advocate for themselves to make sure they're asking for the condo docs. They're asking for the inspection reports. They're asking for 2 years worth of, budget to make sure that there's money in the reserves, for something like that.
And all those things are available and you can ask for all those.
Yep. One says, oh, I see it. Yes, concrete pours. Seems like they would use a concrete sealer. Well, the thing is, it depends on how old the buildings are. The thing that I see all the time in home inspections is, and a lot of home buyers, especially first-time home buyers, and others, but when you go to a home inspection and the inspector says, XYZ is not up to code. These outlets aren't up to code. The circuit breaker box is not up to code. The width of these railings is not up to code. Well, building codes change every year.
Oh, yeah.
Building codes change every year. These condos are probably built to code at the time, not realizing the penalty. Now, yes, there are builders that absolutely could have done shortcuts. 100%. Like, why? Of course, there's always people that will circumvent the system, but that might have not been a code back then. I mean, that's what happens. You see all these deck collapses with people on them, too many people. Right. And it's like, okay, well, that was prior to the codes changing. Now there's something happens, and it's so unfortunate that people have to get injured or die, in order for, the local government to say the building, for them to change the building code, be like, okay, so this is what's going to be required, because no one, it's an inconvenience, right? To be like, wait, I just want to put a deck on. You mean I got to go through all these hoops? Well, it's because somebody died, because of the supports and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But a lot of these, the concrete was probably perfectly fine.
Yeah, I mean,
At
I
the
don't know that
time.
they don't. If it is to Ironman's question, I don't know that they don't use a sealer. It's just that a lot of these buildings, remember, they're 30 years old. Some of them are older.
It's a
They
long time.
it's a long
That's
time to the elements. And listen, I mean, that much time to water. There is no stopping water. I don't care what sealant you use. Water over time will always
110.
win.
And living in a coastal community, I 100% agree with that. You cannot waterproof. You can't fight Mother Nature.
Yeah. And given enough
Mother Nature
time,
will find a way.
water will find its way in. It always
Will
does.
find a way.
Yeah.
Yep. And so you can just do the thing you can, the best you can do, but know that whatever it is, there's always going to be, at some point in time, it's all temporary.
Yeah.
Every building is temporary, right?
Yeah.
Everything on that building is temporary. There is nothing that is 100%, future proof. You know what I mean?
True.
I mean, maybe 3D. Well, you could say 3D printed houses, but 3D printed houses are made out of concrete. So there you go. And there goes the story. Corey West says, could there be a law that puts a cap on HOA assessments and fees? Yeah, we were talking about that earlier with, potentially, like I had mentioned that there's rent control for apartments in certain areas, and lot fees for modular homes. When you're renting a lot of land, you don't own the land that it's on. A lot of areas have rent control that puts a ceiling on that, and yes, that is something that I think the state of Florida 100%. I don't know if there's.
I don't know. That's a great
the government
question.
is, if they're pursuing, I
I'll have to
gotta
look.
imagine that that's something that's on the docket. Like somebody's got to be.
I need to look at that. That'd be
advocating.
good something to bring up and maybe talk about. I don't know. I know people have talked about it a lot, but I don't know that the people that can make the change, the powers that be, have spoken about.
Right.
It. So
somebody needs to go to state rep. That's what needs to happen. Get involved. Concrete is very hard work. Ask me how I know. Aha. I have poured thousands of yards in my time and worked in a few concrete plants, but have never lived next to an ocean. Yeah. You know what? Ocean is it is absolutely gorgeous. And wonderful and all the things you read about, but it is extremely, it comes with burdens, I mean, I see all the time people are, furious. We had a situation here where we had some properties that were on a cliff. The cliff was eroding. Nature, right?
Wow.
Things happen, and the cliff there wasn't enough protection from the ocean to prevent it from eroding further. And it got to a point where there were houses that were going to fall in, and they had to deem them a loss. And some homeowners are mad. They were angry. They're like, well, why isn't the state doing more? It's like, when you buy a property, well, you can't. When you buy a property on the water, you're buying an assumed risk. It is what it is. Yeah. And hopefully, if you're far enough away, you have time on that risk, but you can't stop it. You can shore it up. You can put a seawall. You can spend $500,000, but you cannot stop time. You can't stop nature.
Yeah, well, that's like California, right?
It is.
Those California that are right on I've always wondered how they keep building them, keep buying them. And I'm like, well, they're beautiful, but I couldn't sleep at night knowing I'm like right on that.
There are some pretty, I've seen, especially over the last 10 years, there's a lot of advancements, scientific advancements with building, because the whole thing is you don't want something artificial, right? You don't want something that's going to impede the growth of natural vegetation that shores up that seawall naturally. You don't want to have it completely artificial necessarily, but there are a lot of things that, it's expensive. It's like, okay, well, you're in an area like this cliff, you couldn't get heavy machinery down there easily. You had to go all the way down, like a couple miles down the beach, and then drive the heavy machinery up to where the seawall was to build it. But there are a lot of products being developed now that you can, that you can either you can access it from the top of the cliff, and it slows it down, and it encourages the best thing is to encourage natural vegetation so that nature takes care of nature.
Right.
And the best seawalls are the ones that are not maintained, the ones that are organically built up and protected. But anyways, that's my PBS special, my TED Talk on seawalls. My limited knowledge.
Thanks,
let's see. Let's see. I would think that they would apply the sealer every year, kind of like painting a house every 5 years or so. I bet they would just paint houses all the time. What's next? You know what? You know what it's called? Money. It would cost a lot of money to do that. I 100% agree. 100% agree. Yeah, and then he just followed up. Maybe it would cost less to rebuild. Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny you said that about the money, because from and I got to go back. So up until the collapse, condos always had to have a reserve study about money. Did they have enough money in reserves and stuff like that? They had certain things that they had to do. But when it came to assessments, up until the condo collapse in Surfside, my understanding is that they would vote on certain things. Like, hey, we need an assessment for this. We're going to tell put it to vote. Hey, everybody, we need to build this or fix this, and it's going to cost this much. I'm 80 years old. I might not be here next year. I might not be breathing next year. I'm going back to New York. I don't use this, and I'm blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they would vote no. And it got shot down. So there was a lot of repair work, from my understand, just from, at least from what I've sort of looked at and read about, that said that work wasn't done that should have been done because people voted against it. Now they can't. Now they have to have this done. And again, this isn't talking about pool maintenance or resurfacing the pool. This is for like structural integrity stuff, safety stuff.
Right.
The elevator safe? Is the fire sprinklers working? Is the the structure of the building safe? The foundation. So again, I've had some people say no, that's not the case. You couldn't vote, but I had literally read articles where they said people would vote no against assessments because they just didn't want to deal with it. So
why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't that be a thing? Why wouldn't that be the case? I mean, you see this all the time in other situations. For example, you have a town that wants to improve their school system. School system takes money, makes it's funded, partly by tax base, and everyone pays into the tax base. The benefit of the school system is not limited to the people that have kids going to the school system, but a good school system improves overall values of the homes, right? Mm-hmm. People will pay more to live in a town with a better school system. Okay. Well, homeowner, to your example, 80 years old, what do I care about the school system? I don't have any kids. I'm not going to have any kids. I'm on a fixed income. I don't want my taxes to go up. I vote no.
Yeah.
Even though it benefits the town in a whole, and it benefits everyone to spend that money on the school system, because it will bring more money. It brings contributions from the state, depending on what state you live in. It brings contributions from state funds, additional state funds, matching state funds. So I think that's, that we see that all the time. Like, why wouldn't this be any different?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that's super, super interesting. And before we switch gears, I don't know if you have anything else to add about that, Paul. I want to,
no.
Yeah. So I wanted to, be respectful of time here and switch gears to, our favorite, conversation. Oh boy. Commissions.
You have the sound bites. I love it.
Oh man. So it's the week of, August 17th is Saturday. And
I'm throwing a big party. Woohoo.
Oh boy.
It's ready.
I went on a tirade about this, earlier, about the fact that it didn't help, this lawsuit didn't help anybody except fund the pockets of the attorneys. The very practical thing, the practical viewpoint is it's happening. And there's a lot of confusion. Home sellers don't know what to expect, how to negotiate, how to talk to their listing agents. Buyers don't know, and they're concerned about, gosh, well, I don't know. I don't have that money. And so I just wanted to touch on it and see, what questions might pop up in the chat, get the conversation. If you guys have questions on that, by all means. But, just as an overview and based on, actually, I'm going to be sitting in on a Massachusetts Association of Realtors meeting on Thursday for like the latest update, because the updates have changed. And I will say that the video that I shot, posted I think it's a month ago at this point, almost a month ago, the things have changed slightly, not dramatically, but some things have changed. At that time, we were told, in terms of the interpretation, the attorney interpretation of the lawsuit, of the settlement rather, that the seller could not pay the buyer agent directly. That is not true now. That their latest, and you can, I would advise everyone, and again, you guys know I'm all about you guys advocating for yourself. The NAR website is a great resource. If you guys have questions about like what to ask, what you are allowed to do, don't, fact check your agent. Fact check your agent. Go to the NAR website. There is a fact sheet, right on the website that tells you exactly what this means to you as a buyer, to you as a seller. The seller can do whatever the heck they want. They can pay the agent. And it's my understanding, Paul, that agents can pay co-brokes if the seller permits it. The seller can pay the buyer agent direct. The seller can pay the buyer, and the buyer pays the buyer agent. I know it's confusing because there's too many choices now. There's
a lot of choices. I think there's at least three, to my knowledge.
It's a lot versus before, where it was kind of no choices, a little simpler. But now you've got to make choices, and you've got to have these conversations, and it's a pain. I'm going to say this, and this is my viewpoint right now as I'm sitting here. If you are a seller and you have the mindset that, I want the most number of people to come through the door, and the reality of it is, this is not price fixing, this is not collusion, this is just fact. The fact of the matter is, a lot of buyers aren't going to have the money to pay their agent. And because of that, if a seller is not willing to help out paying that agent, they are not going to go look at that house because they can't afford it.
Yeah. No,
period. They just can't afford it. So the sellers, I think, home sellers, you have those conversations with the agent. My approach is that if the seller is wanting to open the door to as many buyers as possible, you come to terms and with a conversation with your agent on how much you're willing to pay, but then don't post that to the general public, but let the general public, let the buyers and the buyer's agents know you will and you are willing to discuss negotiations. You're willing to to have that conversation,
right?
And you're willing to compensate, included in the offer. So on the buyer's side, you guys want to buy a house, and if the seller agent says the seller's willing to talk about it, your agent needs to just put it in the offer. It's as simple as that. Whatever that agreement you have with your agent, just put it in the offer. Start the conversation. So I think boiling it down to the most basic terms, because I think truly at the end of the day, this lawsuit is not going to be a savings of money to anyone. It didn't achieve the intended goal.
Yeah.
It didn't achieve the intended goal.
Certainly not going to help the buyers.
It's not going to help the buyers, and it's not going to help the sellers. I think it didn't address the issue, the true issue,
right,
which is the lack of education in this industry.
Yeah.
With 75% of the the agents. So, Joseph says, Joseph must be a real estate agent. We've had at least 5 meetings about the new changes, including another one tomorrow. And the summary of all the meetings is, we don't really know what exactly to do. There lies the problem.
We have our meetings.
Thank you, NAR. You did us no favors. Yes, you confused all the real estate agents. You confused all the home sellers. You confused all the buyer agents. You know what I say to that? Good on you. And you line the pockets of the attorneys. But
we have our meeting tomorrow. about it, even though we've been watching all the ones on the web as well. But we have our company meeting tomorrow that we're going to go over that. And we have stuff printed out, what the forms are, and explaining to everybody which forms are what, how to use them. And again, that's going to be the first step. It's going to, I would say this, is I think this is important to put out there for everyone. If you are working with a realtor, whether it's Jen, myself, or who is someone you know, and that realtor is someone, be patient with them. I know that, like Jen said, there we do have a lot of agents that just don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of good agents that have been doing this for a while. This is brand new, y'all. We've never in the history of real estate ever experienced this. It is literally brand new, untested. No one has done it yet. There hasn't been anything other than buyer broker agreements, which have been around for a while. But really, that was kind of silly because they always knew that the buyer's agent was going to get some kind of compensation, right? Because it was listed in the MLS. This is brand new. So don't get upset if someone doesn't have the answer, because it's going to be day one of school for them. And they're going to be like, okay, we have to address this. It's not like they make a law change and every realtor understands and grasps it 100% that quick. And everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. As Jen said, ask questions, go to the website. You know, if you don't think the person talking about it is doing, you know, I don't know, maybe if they don't understand it to your liking or explanation, ask their broker. So, hey, can I ask your broker? Can you get someone explain that?
100%.
But
yeah, and I would take it a step further and say, you know, do again, fact check your agent.
Yeah.
And Paul, you bring up a great point. Even if it's a trusted, experienced professional agent, fact check. I mean, you know, I am happy to have a conversation if I say something and then my seller or my buyer says, yeah, but I read this. Let's have a conversation about it, because it might be the kind of situation where it needs clarification for them, or it might be like, oh, wait, hold on, time out. Let me do more research. You know, maybe I'm not clear on it, you know, because you're absolutely right. I mean, this thing is just getting started, which means nobody has gone to the end to closing with this type of situation where you've got sellers paying buyer agents directly, buyers paying buyer agents directly in some cases, you know, and I would say, like, you know, I had a lot of comments about, have had discussions in previous live streams about this on, you know, concern over the buyer agreement. The buyer agreement, if you're working with an agent, is a non-negotiable. It absolutely has to be signed in order to work with an agency to see a house.
Yeah.
That being said, stemming from what I said, what we were talking about in the very beginning, read every word of that agreement. If you see a house on Zillow and you have not had an opportunity to interview agents, you just want to see the house, and the agent says, I've got to have that buyer agreement. Great. You make sure it's in there. This agreement is for 123 Main Street only.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, that being said, and I know that I teach, my content in teaching is primarily on this channel, home sellers, you know, selling your home and navigating that process. On the buying side, just if you're looking to buy a property, and this is something that I have practiced for years, I highly, highly, highly recommend, before you go out and look at anything, before you call anyone on a Zillow listing, or just you're curious, do the interview process first. Even if you interview an agent and you're like, you know what, this is my lady, this is my guy, this is the agent, but I'm not looking to buy for another 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. But now they're there. They're there as a resource. And take the time, and this is going to be new territory for buyers, because buyers, Paul, they you know, this whole interviewing an agent to be your buyer agent, you interview listing agents, right? But interviewing a buyer agent is entirely different. And I think it's something that, you know, it's something that needs to happen, and it's a muscle that needs to be worked. But I would say, you know, doing that conversation, I will not meet a buyer to look at a property unless I have at least an hour conversation with them, a Zoom meeting, preferably phone call, to understand if they're qualified, financials, what their goals are, where they want to go, where they need to do it, timeline, concerns, all the things. I won't even look at a house with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what I would, when people reach out to me and I said, let's set up a Zoom call or have a conversation on the phone and do it. So one good thing I can say coming out of this are going to be gone the days of, hey, we're in town this weekend. It's raining. We were going to go to the beach, but hey, let's call Paul up and go look at 10 properties. No, you can, but we're going to have a conversation and we're going to have a sit down and you are going to have to sign this document. And that's going to come to a shock for a lot of people. And wait a minute, we just want to go look. I said, that's great. I understand you just want to go look, but there's a document you're going to have to sign to just go look.
Right.
And that's,
well, it, you know, and I think that will create some angst for sure, you know, but it's part of that process, that is just going to be the learning process. Should we request that the selling agent puts the buyer agent commission in the contract so we all can see it? Should we request that the selling agent put the buyer agent commission in the contract?
well, I think you mentioned that, Jen, when you said when you submit an offer, it should have been in the offer anyway. So if you were representing the buyer, you would have already put that in there. And if they agreed to it under the additional terms, however your contract is or an addendum, then they would sign off on that, correct? I mean,
yes. Yeah. So yes. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm stumbling because of the fact that you're asking about the contract. Are you talking about offer to purchase, or are you talking about listing? You're talking about, I'm assuming that you're talking about negotiating on an offer. And it's important to know that the offers coming from the buyer to the seller agent negotiating on behalf of the seller, and the seller agent's fee. Obviously, a lot of people have asked about that. That fee is between the seller and the seller agent and will not be ever known. That's
never been. It's
private,
between the seller and the
confidential fee.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what that is. All right. But I think if I'm understanding, it's, you know, if you're making an offer on 123 Main Street, then you have that conversation. The buyer instructs you to say the seller will pay 2.5%, 2%, 3%, 10%, whatever towards my buyer agent fee. Yeah. So do you think that's
there's gonna be a lot of wording and talking to lawyers. Hey, can we write it this way? Again, who's making the money? Well, the lawyers.
and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we did some wording or you know, went down a path in a certain way and then got there was a notice came down, said, oh, we can't do that anymore.
The first 90 days of this are going to be fun to watch. How many changes?
It's going to be interesting.
Over under, how many changes are there going to be?
I know. You know, my prediction is that we end up full circle in a year from now.
Yeah,
that's my prediction.
You're not the first person to say that.
No, I think we're going to be full circle, and I'll tell you why. Because the buyer agent fee being in MLS, okay? The reason why they want to take that out is because of the fact that they are trying to prevent collusion.
Right.
There's no collusion going on with agents. Well, there's unscrupulous agents. Well, hold on a second. There's unscrupulous agents that will say, they'll look at that buyer agent commission and say, oh, this one pays me 2%, this one pays me 2.5%, this one pays me 3%. And I'm not going to tell the buyer about that. Well, guess what? A couple of years ago, the DOJ recognized that, and they required that buyer agent fee was transparent, and you could see it on Zillow. You could see the buyer agent fee on Zillow to prevent the unscrupulous agents from being unscrupulous. Okay. Where are we at now, Paul? Now they took it away. So now unscrupulous agents will always find a way. You can't stop unethical, shady agents. You cannot stop them from being shady. You can't.
No,
you can't. So those agents will now just call the listing agent, and they're just going to be dialing for dollars. They're going to call this agent. What's the fee? Call this agent. What's the fee? Call this agent. What's the fee? And that's why I say, don't, as a listing agent, as for your, on the seller side, have your listing agent say, you have that conversation. And even if you're like, you know what, I will compensate a buyer agent because I want people in the door, tell your buyer agent, the compensation is negotiable. Bring me an offer. Do not tell them that you're compensating whatever the fee is up front.
That's interesting.
Right? The seller is paying a fee. What's the fee? bring me an offer, and then we'll talk about it. So there's nothing to prevent the shady agent from calling all of these agents. The information is not available on MLS, but they can still call them and then still tell and still steer their buyers. The reality
as
of
long
it,
as they say it's negotiable, because if they take the stance of what I call option C for us here, is that, yeah, he's not offering any compensation, it's strictly up to your buyer, then I guess I would just say, if you called as agent, my seller unfortunately is not, he isn't offering compensation, that would be on you.
Yep.
And then again, because then I guess, but then the question would be, you could be, well, Paul, is he willing to negotiate? And I guess that would be a question of, well, put an offer together and we'll put it in front of him and see what he wants to do.
So
But
that brings up a great point, Paul. That brings up a great point. Okay. How many times, and this is for all you home buyers out there, how many times have you met with a seller and the seller says, I want $500,000, Mr. Listing Agent, and I am not willing to accept a penny less. And then a week goes by, and 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes by, and a buyer makes an offer. Even though the seller's like, I'm not accepting, tell him not to bother. And then the buyer says, well, I'm going to ask. And then the seller gets the offer and is like, all right, because there's no other offers on the table. So you got to ask.
Yeah.
If your agent says don't bother, the worst they can say is no. If your agent says don't bother, it's not worth it. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you have a $500,000 house and you want to make a $300,000, $400,000 offer, that's just not realistic. That's not, I mean, I can't, that to me is not, I don't think, something ridiculous, a huge gap and, between list price, sell price, but that's not the norm, I would say, but you don't know until you ask.
That's true.
You don't know until you ask. Right.
Yep. And it's always, like I said, it's always been negotiable. So,
yep. And so I think what's going to happen is that because of that lack of transparency, because the buyers, say you have a buyer you're a home buyer, you're looking to buy a house, your finances are tight, and you're like, Paul, I can't buy this house unless the seller pays the entire fee. Like, I don't even want to make an offer and go through the whole process of, putting all the numbers on it. Like, I can't, it's time consuming just to get a no. Like, wouldn't it be much more, it would be less time wasted for the seller, less time wasted for the buyer if they just told them up front.
Yeah.
Of course it would. This whole change is very anti-buyer. And what I think is that the buyer lawsuits are going to be coming next. Mm-hmm. I think the buyer advocate groups are going to be coming next. And I think we're going to go full circle 360 this time next year. And it's going to be maybe a little similar in the sense that the commissions are split, because I do think that to a certain degree that awareness is good for the consumer, but there's the amount of money that's being paid is still going to be around the same amount, maybe a little bit less, but around the same amount. But the transparency needs to come back.
Yeah.
And then they can spend some money on required education, like every agent requiring to be a mentor, for crying out loud, like an apprenticeship. Come on.
I just got my luxury certification. I just took that, finished that course, and then the broker just said, hey, there's a free accredited buyers course that they're doing right now.
Yep.
So I may be doing that, trying to keep the education going.
Well, and I think, so here's the thing. And Joseph, you're right. It's a terrible time for first-time home buyers, first-generation buyers, and buyers from poor communities. Great for lawyers. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 30% of $418 million.
They need hey, Jen, they need a flat fee.
They need a flat fee.
They keep saying realtors need a flat fee. The realtors need a flat fee.
30%. Can you imagine?
The lawyer needs a flat fee. Yeah, you don't need 33%. Here you go.
33%. That's standard for class action.
Yeah.
It's gross. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. I got all worked up there for a second. I lost my train of thought. Golly. Oh man. Yeah,
Well,
it's going to be interesting, and
just have to get through
lost my
it.
train of thought. Yeah, it's going to be all it'll work out.
Yeah,
It's all going to work out, and
I'm too old to
it's just
become a
going to
pro
take
surfer.
patience.
I'm too old to become a pro
What's that?
surfer. I'm too old to be a pro surfer, so I'll have to make the real
Right.
estate work out.
I remembered what I was going to say.
But
She's getting older is a
I know,
like, let
trust
me
me.
tell you something. Like, I'm only 52, and I'm like, what the heck? Oh, wait a minute, that's my train of thought right there. When you hire a financial advisor, they're handling your money. Does a financial advisor take a course online, get a license, and start handling money right away?
No,
Nope.
they go for Series 7.
Then
Series
why
Series
does
7 takes a while.
Yep. Now, real estate agents aren't directly handling your money, but they're giving financial advice.
They're handling your
They're
biggest
giving
asset.
they're handling your
Or for
biggest
many,
asset,
their biggest asset.
bigger than most financial advisors, portfolios,
Yeah.
stock portfolios for most people. That is freaking wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. And that's and the good all I can tell you is that good agents, and there are, and unfortunately the good agents are buried under the garbage. But that's why I try to help people, connect people with the good people, because the good agents like yourself, Paul, like I never stop learning, and I'm always researching, and I'm always, doing classes online and talking to people, and, sharpening the saw, as they say. But the good agents don't stop doing that. And that is what is the difference.
I don't like emails in the morning a lot, if it's work, but we get a lot of junk emails. The one email I do get is sent out from our board of realtors for the state of Florida. And I read that email. I read it every morning and see what's in there. For one, it's good for topics, but it's also good for understanding and educating the general public about, hey, did you know this? Like, this is new. I didn't realize this. And you share that with people. And I think that's what they want from us. They want us to be, hey, Paul, what's new in real estate, other than just educate them. So because a lot of the general public's not thinking about real estate every day. They don't wake up doing that. They bought their house, they got their kids, they got their job, whatever, wife wants this done, mow the lawn, whatever, they got this stuff, but it's up to us to do that. So that's my broker and I funny. Well, I'll see who gets the story first. I go, did you see that story? And she goes, yeah, I already saw it. I was like, you got a little kid. You're up earlier than I am. I don't have to get up as early. So,
how to buy a home. Hey. Thanks for being here. I heard Pensacola builders are so eager to dump their homes. They are offering 8% to 8% to the buyers. I've heard that. I have heard that just to the buyer agent. Yes, I have heard builders are getting super aggressive to dump, because this stuff is just caught. They're just bleeding money, and they're offering huge incentives, buying down rates, interest rates, all kinds of stuff.
I've seen that. I just haven't seen that high of a commission. I mean, I've seen 4% here in Southeast Florida, but that's wow.
Yep. And that's absolutely 100%. I've heard that 100%. Leah says, depends on the financial advisor. If you're CFP, you have to be educated, tested, and then 2+ years before you can add the CFP as credentials.
Yeah, I think that's certified financial planner.
Got it. Okay. Gotcha. Perfect. And I mean, it's and they have unethical financial advisors, but at least they're educated. I'm not frustrated at all. I'm trying to keep my blood pressure down low.
You need more sound effects.
I'm looking at the palm trees, right?
Zing.
I'm looking at the palm trees and like I don't have any let's see, do I have some nice cool, hold on a second. Here we go.
I've seen that, Joseph. I have seen that with some, not that high, but I have seen some tiered commissions with some of the builders down here.
That's crazy. 25,000. Woof. Crazy. Spot on agents. My 14-year-old could get a real estate license. How do you know if an agent is good? Well, the good thing is,
ask for references.
I'm going to tell you right now that there are things you can proactively do. We have the interwebs. We got the interwebs, and I will tell you, you can go on a site like Zillow. That's how I honestly vet some of my agents that, you know, I have agents that I have known and I trust and are in my preferred agent database, the people that my small group of agents that I, you know, refer business to. But at the end of the day, if I want to see how active they are, Zillow has that information. So you can go on Zillow, it'll show you how, and I don't know, you know, is it 100% accurate? I don't know that for certain, but they are likely pulling it from MLS because they pull all their information from MLS. So they're aggregating data with their
Yeah.
algorithms, but they give you a good idea of not only how many sales they've sold last year, you know, this year, last year, the year before. Okay, but where they're selling. So if you have
Mhm.
an agent that's like, seems like it's a great agent, and then you go on the site and you're like, yeah, but that agent hasn't sold anything in the area that I'm looking to buy. That's kind of a red flag. You know, I mean, it could be like a small neighborhood, different story. But if you're looking at an area, a town, and the closest sale that they've had is a town over, 2 towns over, do they really know what's going on in that town? You know, but then it also gives you all the credential, how long they've been in the business and all that stuff. The reviews, I don't know, Paul. I don't know if I
Yeah, because
reviews
they're
have a lot of
obviously we
weight.
ask for the reviews. Yeah, that's I mean,
Yeah.
that's maybe not the best,
Yeah.
but another good place you can check is you can also go to, for at least the state, you can go look at the Department of Business and Professional Regulations, and
Yep.
you can look to see if they have any complaints or violations against them. That's a great
Infractions.
start. Yeah, see there,
Yep. But I
because
think it's just interviewing, and asking them the questions about, you know, how they react to this. What do they, you know, what's their take on the market? What's their take, you know, and why you interview more than one agent, you know?
ask
I mean,
and your friends,
I
right? I
talked
mean,
to,
your friends are a great
yeah,
source.
I
If
mean,
your friends like
yeah,
someone and
to,
they do a good job,
true.
then
Friends are not always like, great place to start, but not a place to end. Like, just because your friend gave you a referral, and I get referrals from friends and family, you know, all the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, you could get a referral to Johnny because they want to help him out
well,
and
that's
he did
true.
a good job. He's only been in the business a year,
Yeah,
you know. I think you need to fact check. I think you need to do the hard work of the due diligence and asking, and just not taking the word of just one agent.
yeah.
I think that's the bottom line. Um, must be give you 25,000 and give the buyer 30,000 in concessions. You must
Wow.
be talking about, oh, the Colorado,
Yeah.
the builder, Colorado. That's crazy, bonkers. Um, what's your favorite question a client ever asked you when interviewing you? What's your favorite question? Hmm. Do you work with cash buyers? That's a great question. Take the mortgage question, right? Take the mortgage, you know, all the navigating of getting a mortgage out of the question. No, what's my favorite, or maybe what better yet, what's the best question would probably be a better, you know, thing to tell you that a client has ever asked interviewing you. You know, I think when a client asks where I get the data and how, you know, if you have a price, you say the house is worth, on the, again, I'm speaking on the seller side. If I have a price, and I mean, well, full transparency, like, I'm super type A when it comes to my listing presentations. So usually when I get to the end of the conversation and I ask them, do you have any questions? Do you have any concerns? They're like, no, because I probably explained it, like, you know, over communicated, whatever. But the thing that I've worked on over the years is the thing that a lot of agents fall short on, and I fell short early on in the career, which is the houses I think this house is worth 500,000. Great. Why? Oh, well, there's this house, that house, whatever. Okay. Show me. Explain to me where you got the data. Explain to me on paper the difference between this house and this house. This one has a garage, this one doesn't. Okay. Why are you giving me a $50,000 difference when you can build a one-car garage for $50,000, for example, that's not a return on investment of 100%. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Tell me the data. Show me the data in the local area that says that the houses have appreciated 5% or 10%. I think proof behind the interpretation is a great question, because it shows that the agent actually knows the data, and also they're not shooting from the hip, which is one as a kind of an agent that is not unscrupulous, but uneducated. What do you think, Paul?
No, I agree. I mean, the data tells you everything. So if
Yep.
you go look at what's, I mean, you just have to look at what the market has been doing. And I don't, a year ago, the market was completely different than 6 months ago. So I'll go back 6 months and say, well, let's look at what's going on here. And we'll look at the homes and the upgrades and everything that's on a particular house. We'll take a look and see how long they sat on the market. And, active listings are okay, but you can ask anything, right? What really matters is what is sold, and try to look at the properties that have sold and go, look, this house is a superior house. Like, it had more updates, it had more this, it had more things. And I think there is something to, I personally think, because I've had this argument with people say, yeah, but that house is smaller. I said, you're right. That house was 300 square feet smaller, but you know what it had? It had a brand new roof. You know what that means to a Florida buyer? It means they know they have insurance and they don't have to worry about a roof for at least 10 years, right? I mean, God, any storms. I will forego 300 square feet and that sofa and live without it, knowing that I have a house with a roof, versus trying to a house that has a roof that's not going to get insurance. And so when you're comparing those people, and you have to think about, people are looking to buy a house, and it's like, insurance is such a factor in Florida that this house could have everything, but if they can't get an insurance policy, first of all, if they can't get insurance, you're never going to finance the house, and now you've just cut out a huge portion of any potential buyers, and now you're hoping for a cash buyer, and that's so. But data is that you got to look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie. People. I like to laugh at them when they say, "Oh, the realtors inflated the market. You guys made this." I said, "No, we didn't. If Mr. X bought his house in 2011 for $200,000, and he was able to get someone to buy it for $600,000 in 2020, and then the next neighbor saw that Mr. X sold for $600,000, and now he could sell his for $605,000. Guys, that's just buy low.
Why wouldn't they do it?
No one did that. No realtor made them do that. We didn't say, hey, you have to sell it for this much. It's the law. The seller.
Right.
Maybe if you want to be mad at the seller because he made a profit, okay, be mad
like
at
every red-blooded American, it's like, well, who would say that? It'd be like, well, you know what? 600,000 is inflated. I don't feel right about that.
Hey, dude, I'm mad that you bought that.
Let's just add 500. 500 is fair because this is an artificial market. No, the seller's going to get as much money as they possibly can. It's not called greed. It's just called market value.
I'm mad that you bought that Apple stock for $100, Jen. It is not worth 20,000 or whatever it's worth now.
I wish I bought Apple stock. I freaking wish. I'd actually have retirement, my friend, if I did. But hence I do not. Yeah. I'm a new agent. I don't have many sales, but I've got a builder development and several investment properties. I'm honest and real. I tell sellers the truth, even though they don't want to hear it. Yes. And if you're a new agent, definitely try to get it. Hopefully you have a mentor, somebody you can lean on, so on and so forth, to help you in making those decisions and whatnot. I think that's super, super. I mean, we all have to start somewhere. And I think the one thing that I did when I was new in real estate is, and I have, I'm afflicted with this lack of filter that I tell people what's going on in my head, and not to say I can't lie, but I have like this compass in my head that makes me feel real anxious about not telling the truth. I like beat myself up all night, so I would tell people, I don't know, but I'm going to find out for you. I don't know, but I have people to call. I don't know, but I'll find out. I'll do the research. I'll do that to this day.
I did make up stuff when I was talking about the contracts. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not a lawyer.
You don't make stuff up.
Yeah. Don't just make it. It's like, hey, Jen, I don't know that particular part. let me go back to my broker and ask. No one's ever asked me that before. That's never really come up. But I want to make sure I have the right answer for you. And then go find the expert. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is, we literally have a fiduciary responsibility to our sellers of the most money possible. Yep. Spend the shortest amount of time. And I would say to meet the client's needs, because sometimes it's not all about the value. Right, Paul? Like if you have a seller that says the most important thing to me is getting out from under this house, and I am willing to take a little bit less money if I can get it done faster. It's not the price. It's not always the price. It's what is the most important thing. Now, it seems counterintuitive and silly, but if you have somebody that is under duress, they have, health issues, or they have pressure because they're relocating for a job, or they're relocating for family reasons, they're willing to let go of a little bit of money if it means getting them to where they need to be faster.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me, you know what? I had one seller a couple of years ago, and she got, one offer. And I said, it's the first offer. I said, it's a decent offer. Not sure it's the highest, but it's a really fair offer. And she said, you know what? I'm cool with that. I'll accept it. I said, yeah. She says, because I don't have to deal with people coming to my house anymore. I don't have to worry about keeping the house clean. I don't have to be like, it caused her a lot of stress. The process in general for her personally was very stressful, to have strangers in your house, and there was value in just being done with it. So I think it's honoring whatever the homeowner wants, whatever's most important to them. But in any event, I'm going to tell you that, if anyone is, let me see here. I gotta cue this up.
And I'm gonna have to hop
unprepared. Yep, I'm closing out here.
Oh, all right.
Because I'm hungry. Hey, it's like 7:42 here, East Coast. If anyone is looking for get in touch with Paul, his link is going to be in the description. You can get in touch with him there, and look him up, and he can take care of you. He'll take great care of you. For sure. Check them out. I so appreciate you stopping in, sharing your expertise and, and experiences and so forth. No, I really, really do.
Thank you. Well, I'll have to, we'll get you on, I'll do one, and you come down and talk to us here in South Florida, because there's a lot of people from your neck of the woods down here. So,
100%. Well, on that note, hey, thanks for everybody for joining in. Appreciate all your comments, appreciate all your support, and love the community here, and love that everybody's learning something. So, hey, everybody, be kind to your neighbor, be nice to somebody, be patient, enjoy the rest of the summer. Paul, it was good to have you on.
Thank you so much.
Have a great rest of the night.
The puppies tell me I got to eat.
The puppies chiming in. All right, everyone, have a great rest of the week. We'll see you next week. All right, bye.